The sound was not of a body falling. It was the sound of a life being shattered. First came the sharp noise of crystal shattering against imported Italian marble, 1,000 shards of glass scattering like deadly diamonds across the living room floor. And then Richard, heavy, the sound of 70 kilos of flesh and bone collapsing without any reflex of defense. He fell face down. The impact made his teeth clatter violently, cutting the inside of his mouth. The metallic taste of blood immediately mixed with the bitter flavor rising from his throat. He tried to breathe, but the air felt like it had turned into liquid cement. His lungs burned, demanding oxygen, but the command never reached his diaphragm. He was drowning on solid ground. His eyes, wide and injected with panic, focused on the intricate pattern of the Oriental rug, the one he and Laura had bought in Las Vegas on their engagement trip. Each knot of that fabric seemed to mock him. "Now get up!" he screamed inside his own head. The command was desperate, furious. "Move your hand, move a finger. Richard, get up." But nothing happened. His body had become a prison of inert flesh. Paralysis had started in his feet, creeping up his legs like a cold vine, and now it crushed his chest. The only thing that worked were his senses. He could hear everything. The hum of the central air conditioning, the ticking of the pendulum clock in the hallway, and the rhythmic, calm, terrifying sound of heels, a needle approaching on the wooden floor. Click, crack, click. There was no hurry in those footsteps. There was no stumble of desperation, nor the rush of help. They were steps of someone strolling through a museum. Richard saw from the corner of his paralyzed eye the red-soled shoes stop inches from his nose. He could smell her perfume, Chanel, the same one he gifted her every Christmas. A scent he once associated with love and desire now carried the unmistakable odor of death. Laura did not bend down. She stood tall, a tower of coldness above him. The silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the wet and disgusting sound of someone taking a sip of a drink. Richard heard the liquid slide down her throat. She was drinking. He was dying at her feet, and she was finishing her. Champagne. "And you know, Richard," her voice floated through the air, velvety, calm, as if they were discussing the guest list for a wedding and not a murder. "I always thought you were stronger. Or maybe the poison was just weak." Richard felt a solitary tear roll down the corner of his eye. The only physical reaction his body allowed was not sadness. It was pure, incandescent hatred. He had planned everything. He had switched the pills in the bottle that morning. He knew she was trying something, but he thought it would be gradual. He wanted to catch her, in the act, giving the wrong medicine. But he underestimated her greed. She didn't use the medicine, she used the champagne. The champagne he drank at lunch, served by her hands with a smile and a toast to the future. The future that would now last only a few more minutes. It took months. Laura continued to walk slowly around his body like a predator inspecting its prey. Small doses in the coffee, in the juice. "But you are stubborn. Your heart is like a bull. I had to speed up the process. Tomorrow is the wedding. After all, I couldn't risk you backing out at the altar. Widow is a much more elegant title than divorced or abandoned, don't you think? And much, much more profitable." She stopped again in front of him. With a casual motion, she extended her leg and with the sharp, hard tip of her heel kicked Richard's inert hand. The pain was sharp, but he couldn't recoil. "What a waste of a suit," she sighed, looking at the expensive fabric crumpled on the floor. "I hope it doesn't stain the rug with blood. Do you know how much it costs to clean blood from an Oriental rug? It's a fortune." It was then that the world outside invaded their bubble of horror. The service door leading to the kitchen creaked open. Quick, light footsteps in rubber sneakers and the smell, not of expensive perfume, but of lavender and coconut soap. The smell of a clean home, the smell of Anna. Anna entered the room, humming softly, carrying a tall stack of freshly pressed white towels. She stopped abruptly when she saw the scene. Time froze for a second. The maid looked at her boss sprawled on the floor. She looked at her mistress standing with a glass of wine in hand and a cruel smile on her lips. The towels fell from Anna's hands, spreading like white clouds across the floor. "Mr. Richard!" Anna's scream was visceral. It was not a polite scream. It was the scream of someone witnessing a tragedy happening to someone they love. She ran. She didn't care about etiquette, hierarchy, or anything. She threw herself on the floor beside him. Anna's knees hit the marble hard, but she didn't feel it. Her trembling hands went straight to Richard's face. "Mr. Richard, for God's sake, talk to me." She shook his shoulders gently, afraid of hurting him. "Mrs. Laura, what happened to him? He's not breathing. Call emergency quickly." Anna pressed her ear to his chest. Richard's heart beat like a bird trapped in a cage, out of rhythm, faltering. It's beating. It's weak, but it's beating. Anna lifted her head, her eyes filled with tears, staring at Laura. "Mrs. Laura, why are you standing there? The phone. Where's the phone?" Laura looked at Anna with such deep disdain that it seemed physical. She swirled the wine in her glass, watching the red liquid make waves. "Get your hands off him." "You slum girl," Laura said, her voice cold. "Chilly. You're going to stain his shirt with that greasy hand of yours." Anna blinked, not understanding. The shock of that sentence hit her like a slap. "What? He's dying? Can't you see? He's turning purple." Without waiting for her employer, Anna shoved her hand into the pocket of her blue apron. Her fingers, calloused from bleach and hard work, fumbled for the old cell phone with the cracked screen. She needed to call 911. She needed to save the only man in that house who treated her like a person, who asked how her mother was, who said good morning while looking her in the eyes. Anna struggled to unlock the screen, tears blurring her vision. I'm going to call for help," she sobbed. Laura moved, not slowly this time, but with the strike of a snake. She took 2 steps forward and with a precise and violent motion slapped Anna's hand. The phone flew far away, spinning in the air, and smashed against the rustic stone fireplace. The battery bounced to one side, the shattered screen to the other. Anna looked at the destroyed device, then at Laura. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The horror of realization began to take over her. "Mrs. Yu broke my phone," Anna whispered. "Broke it?" Laura smiled, and it was a terrible smile. "And I'll break you too if you don't shut that filthy mouth." "Do you want him to die?" Anna said the phrase, trembling like an accusation. She stood up, backing away, positioning herself between Richard's body and the woman she now saw as a monster. "Did you do something to him?" Laura laughed. A loud laugh that echoed through the high ceiling of the room. "Me? Oh, darling, no one will believe that. Look at me." Laura opened her arms, displaying the silk dress, the jewelry, the perfect skin. "I'm the grieving bride, the victim of a tragedy. And you? Who are you, Anna? The maid, the servant, the invisible one?" Laura stepped forward, cornering Anna against the sofa. "Do you think anyone will believe the word of a nobody against mine?" Laura lowered her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "Today, Anna, I become a widow and the heiress of an empire, and you will be tomorrow's headline. Obsessive maid poisons boss out of unrequited love. What do you think? It's a good title." Anna felt her stomach churn. Fear paralyzed her, but indignation spoke louder. "You're a demon. I'm going to scream. I'm going to tell everyone." Anna tried to run toward the front door, but Laura, driven by insane adrenaline, grabbed Anna's hair. She pulled hard, making the maid's head tilt back violently. Anna screamed in pain. "You're not going anywhere," Laura hissed. With her other hand, Laura pulled something hidden inside her bra, a small bottle, dark glass, with a faded skull label. There was still a residue of white powder at the bottom. Laura forced her hand into Anna's apron pocket. "Don't let me go!" Anna thrashed, scratching Laura's arm, trying to kick, but Laura was taller and had the advantage. Laura managed to shove the bottle deep into the maid's pocket. Then she grabbed Anna's wrists and rubbed them forcefully against her own neck and arms, scratching her own skin with Anna's short nails. "Attack me! Come on, leave your mark!" Laura screamed madly. "Stop! You're crazy! Help! Someone help me!" Anna shouted, crying, terror taking over. Richard watched everything from the floor. It was medieval torture to see the woman who planned his death, incriminating the only innocent soul in that house. He tried to bite his tongue, tried to inflict pain on himself to break the shock, but nothing worked. He was a camera recording hell. Laura abruptly released Anna, pushing her. Anna fell onto Richard's body again, instinctively trying to protect him. Laura took a deep breath, ruffled her hair with both hands, tore the thin strap of her silk blouse, exposing her bare shoulder. She looked in the entrance mirror, saw the red mark on her own neck. Perfect. She ran to the window, flung it open with a bang, and began to scream. A high-pitched scream that chilled the blood, a performance worthy of an Oscar. "Help! Security! She's armed! She's going to kill him! Someone help me! No, please, no!" Anna sobbed, holding Richard's cold hand. "Mr. Richard, wake up, tell them it's a lie." Seconds later, the sound of heavy boots in the hallway. The front door was kicked open. 2 security guards from the private company, huge men in black suits, entered with weapons drawn. Behind them, the driver and the cook peeked in, terrified. The scene was perfect for Laura's narrative. The millionaire dead on the floor, the bride crying with her torn clothes leaning against the wall, and the maid sprawled over the body with her hands on his chest. Get her off him!" Laura screamed, pointing her trembling finger. "She poisoned him. I saw it. She attacked me when I tried to take the poison from her hand." "Hands up now!" the guard shouted. Anna raised her trembling hands, her face soaked in tears and mucus. "It's not a lie. It was her. She put it in my pocket." Anna screamed, but her voice was choked with sobs. One of the guards didn't wait for explanations. He stepped forward, grabbed Anna by the collar of her uniform, and slammed her against the wall. The impact knocked the air out of her. He twisted her arm behind her back with unnecessary force. "It's clear!" the guard shouted. "The woman is restrained. Call the police and the ambulance." Anna groaned in pain, her face pressed against the expensive wallpaper. She saw Richard sideways. He remained motionless. The following minutes were a blur of chaos. The sirens arrived too quickly, cutting through the night of the upscale neighborhood. Red and blue lights danced across the walls of the living room, giving a nightmarish air to the scene. Detective Arnold entered, a middle-aged man with a stern face who often attended Sunday barbecues at Laura's father's house. Laura ran into his arms, crying uncontrollably. Uncle Arnold, thank God, was horrible. She sobbed on the detective's shoulder. "Richard," he fell suddenly, and I saw her. I saw her laughing with a bottle in her hand. The detective patted Laura's back and looked at Anna, who was handcuffed in a corner, watched by 2 police officers. His gaze was one of pre-condemnation. "Calm down, my dear. We will sort this out. Where is the bottle?" "In her pocket. I saw her put it away when I entered." Laura lied with a chilling naturalness. The detective signaled to a female officer. "Search her." The officer reached into Anna's apron pocket. Anna closed her eyes, praying that the bottle had disappeared, that it was a nightmare. "Here, Chief." The officer lifted the vial with her fingertips using a glove. "There are traces of white powder. It looks like rat poison or arsenic." A murmur ran through the household staff, watching from the doorway. "Murderer!" someone whispered. "It's not mine," Anna shouted desperately. "She put it there. She attacked me. Look at the broken phone. She broke it so I couldn't call for help." The detective walked over to Anna. He got very close, invading her personal space. He smelled of tobacco and arrogance. "Listen here, girl. Do you think anyone will believe that Mrs. Laura, one of the most respected women in this society, would plant poison in the pocket of a maid? Do you think we're idiots?" "But it's the truth," Anna pleaded, looking at the paramedics loading Richard onto the stretcher. "Mr. Richard knows. He heard everything. He's not dead. He's listening." "He's in a coma, you lunatic," the detective retorted. "And if he dies, your situation goes from attempted murder to first-degree murder. Take her away." Two police officers grabbed Anna by the arms and began dragging her outside. It was the walk of shame. Passing through the room where she had cleaned with such care every day, passing by her co-workers, Maria from the kitchen, Mr. John the driver, who averted their gaze in fear or shame. Laura stood in the middle of the room, wiping away her fake tears, watching the spectacle. Anna resisted at the door. She needed to see Richard one last time. The stretcher was passing by her at that very moment, heading to the other ambulance. Richard was pale, with an oxygen mask covering his mouth and nose, but his eyes were open, and they found Anna's. There was a moment of absolute silence amid the chaos, a spiritual connection. Richard saw the terror in that innocent girl's eyes. He saw the loyalty and the fury within him that broke the chemical barrier of the poison for a millisecond. He focused all his existence on his right eyelid. It was like trying to lift a mountain with an eyelash, but he managed. He blinked slowly, heavily, once. Anna saw it. She stopped struggling. He was alive. He was there. That blink was not a spasm. It was a signal. "I know. I saw. Hold on tight. Hurry up." The officer shoved Anna into the cold, hard patrol car. Anna fell into the back seat, the handcuffs biting into her wrists. She saw through the barred window Laura approach the patrol car before they closed the door. The villain leaned down with a victorious smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Don't worry about Richard, dear," Laura whispered to Anna, low enough for the police not to hear. "I'll take care of him at the hospital. I'll make sure he has a quick and painless end. As soon as I get the doctor's signatures, I'll pull the plug. Pray for him to go to hell soon." The door slammed, muffling Anna's protest. The siren blared, the world spun, and Anna was taken into darkness. The 4th District Police Station was not a place for human beings. It was a depot of despair. Anna was thrown into a holding cell with 3 other women. The smell was an unbearable mix of sour sweat, mold, sewage, and cheap cigarette smoke. The floor was damp and sticky. She curled up in the farthest corner, hugging her knees to her chest. She trembled from the cold, despite the stifling heat of the night. Her maid uniform, once a source of pride for being honest work, now felt like a ridiculous costume in that place. "Hey, cleaning princess!" A woman with a scarred and tattooed face grumbled from a filthy mattress. "Stop crying, it's giving me a headache." "What did you do? Steal silverware from your boss?" Anna shook her head, unable to speak. If she told the truth that she had been accused of trying to kill a billionaire, they would probably beat her, thinking she was a liar or rich. Hours dragged on like centuries. Every minute was torture. Anna thought of her mother, Mrs. Smith, alone at home, waiting for her to return with the week's money to buy her blood pressure medication. Who would take care of her mother now? Would the police inform her, or would her mother see her daughter handcuffed on the morning news and have a heart attack? The thought made Anna sob louder. "Shut up!" the inmate shouted. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps in the hallway. A guard banged his baton against the bars. Anna Claire Smith, visitor, lawyer. Anna's heart leapt. Lawyer. She had no money for a lawyer. Would the state send someone so quickly? She rushed to the bars, gripping the cold bars with her trembling hands. In the hallway, illuminated by a flickering fluorescent light, stood a man who didn't look like a public defender. Impeccable chalk, shiny shoes, genuine leather briefcase. He had a slick and condescending smile, Dr. Peterson. Anna had seen him at the mansion a few times. He was the lawyer for Laura's family. "Good evening, Anna," he said. keeping a safe distance from the bars, as if her poverty were contagious. "This is quite a complicated situation for you, isn't it, Dr. Peterson?" Anna said in a hoarse voice. "You need to help me. It was Laura. She set everything up. How is Richard?" The lawyer sighed, opening the briefcase with excessive calm. "Mr. Richard is in critical condition. The doctors say the dose of poison was brutal, but I didn't come to talk about his health. I came to discuss your future, or the lack thereof." He pulled a document from the briefcase. "I spoke with Officer Arnold. The evidence is irrefutable, Anna. Digital fingerprints, the substance in your pocket, the fact that you were alone with him. The prosecution will seek 30 years for attempted robbery resulting in death. If he dies, you will come in here young and leave an old woman straight to the coffin. And your mother, well, poor Mrs. Smith, alone and sick. Who will take care of her? She'll end up in a public nursing home, forgotten." Anna felt her legs give way. The mention of her mother was the low blow she hadn't expected. "No, my mother won't." "Exactly." The lawyer smiled, seeing he had found the weak point. "But Laura is a merciful woman. She understands that people of your class sometimes make desperate mistakes for money." He extended a sheet of paper and a gold pen through the bars. "If you sign this confession now, admitting it was an accident, that you accidentally mixed up his medications, we can make a deal. Laura won't press charges. You'll get involuntary manslaughter. With good behavior and our connections, you could be out in a year, maybe 6 months back to take care of your mother." Anna looked at the paper. The letters seemed like snakes moving. "I, Anna Claire Smith, confess that I administered a toxic substance." It was the easy way out. Sign, bow your head, accept the injustice, and save your mother. The system had already decided she was guilty. Why fight? She picked up the pen. The metal was cold. The lawyer smiled victoriously. But then the image came to her mind. Richard's gaze, that single blink. It wasn't a look of surrender. It was a look of someone trapped who needed her. If she signed that, she would be condemning Richard to death. Laura would be free to turn off the machines and inherit everything. Anna looked at the pen, then at the lawyer. The fear in her chest transformed into something warmer, indignation, anger, dignity. "If I sign this," Anna said, her voice firm for the first time that night, "I will be saying that I am a murderer, and I am not." "Don't be stupid, girl." The lawyer's smile faltered. "It's your only chance, is it? Or 30 years?" Anna dropped the pen. It fell to the floor of the corridor with a metallic sound. Then Anna took the confession paper with both hands and tore it in half. The sound of the paper tearing was loud in the silence of the precinct. She tore it again and again until it turned into confetti. She threw the pieces in the lawyer's face through the bars. "Tell your boss," Anna said, gripping the bars, looking into the man's eyes, "that I will not sign anything. I did not put poison in that glass, and she knows it. And tell her that if she lays a finger on Richard in the hospital, I will scream so loud that the whole world will hear, even if it's from inside this cell." The lawyer stepped back, wiping a piece of paper from his lapel with disgust. His face turned red with anger. "You just signed your sentence, you wretch. No one rejects a deal from Laura Bittencourt. You will rot here, and your mother will die of heartbreak, knowing her daughter is a criminal." He turned his back and marched out, the sound of his expensive shoes fading down the corridor. Anna was left alone. The adrenaline faded and the tears returned, but now it was a different kind of crying. It was no longer panic. It was war. In the high corner of the wall, outside the cell, a small television crackled. The morning news was on. The anchor spoke with a grave expression. Anna lifted her swollen eyes. Richard's photo appeared on the screen. Urgent. Billionaire Richard Faraz fights for his life in the ICU of Central Hospital. Fiancée and sole heir Laura Bittencourt prohibits visits and doctors cite irreversible damage. Family lawyers are already preparing the succession of assets. Anna clenched her hands on the bars until the knuckles turned white. "Irreversible damage," she whispered. "She will kill him today." Anna looked around the filthy cell. She didn't have a year. She didn't have months. She had hours. Richard was alive, trapped in his own body, waiting for her, and she needed to find a way out of there. Now, the sound of the stamp hitting the metal table echoed like a mercy shot in the cold precinct room. It was the sound of bureaucracy deciding the fate of a life. Anna Claire shuddered. She had been sitting in the hard plastic chair for hours, with her clothes still dirty on the floor of the mansion, the smell of sweat and fear ingrained in her skin. Her hands, once calloused only from honest work, were now stained with the black ink of the police record, ink that seemed like it would never come off. "You have a luck you don't deserve, girl," said the public defender, not even looking at her face. He was a young man with deep, dark circles and a wrinkled shirt, exuding the fatigue of someone who sees dozens of lost cases every night. The on-duty judge accepted the habeas corpus, not because he believed in her innocence, but because the system is overloaded and you are a first-time offender, have a fixed residence, and take care of an invalid mother. Anna held the cheap pen with trembling fingers. Signing that paper felt like signing a pact with the devil. "I didn't do anything, doctor," she whispered, her voice coming out like sandpaper, scratched after so much crying in the cell. "I swear on my mother's life. It was Mrs. Laura. She planted the glass in my pocket." The public defender stopped organizing the papers and finally looked at her. There was pity in his eyes, but it was a cynical pity. "Listen, Anna, what you did or didn't do doesn't matter now. What matters is what's in the inquiry. And the inquiry says you were caught red-handed with the murder weapon in your pocket on top of the victim. The word of a maid against the word of society as a whole." He lowered his voice, leaning over the table. "Your freedom is provisional. It's a hair's breadth. The restraining order is clear, 500 meters away from the Ferraz mansion, and 500 meters from the central hospital. If you breathe near Mrs. Laura or Mr. Richard, you go back to that cell, and next time I won't be here to get you out. Do you understand?" Anna nodded, swallowing her tears. "I understand, doctor." "Great. Now sign and get out of here and pray that the man doesn't die, because if he dies, the charge changes to first-degree murder, and then, my daughter, not even God can get you out of jail." Anna signed. The stroke came out shaky. As she exited through the heavy door of the police station, the early morning wind hit her face like a cold slap. The city was deserted. It was 3:15 a.m. The silence of the streets contrasted with the noise of chaos in her mind. She had no money for the bus, no phone to call a ride. Her phone lay in pieces in the fireplace of the mansion. She was alone, miles from home, marked as a criminal. Anna began to walk. With each step, the headline from the newspaper flashed in her mind like a neon sign. Irreversible damage. Laura was going to turn off the machines. She was going to finish the job, and Anna was the only person in the world who knew the truth. Go home, she thought, hug my mother, lock the door, and wait for the police to come get me again. That would be the safest thing. It would be what any sensible person would do. But then the image of Richard came to her, not the unreachable millionaire, but the man who had insisted just last week that she take the rest of his birthday cake to her mother. The man who asked if she was tired, the man who, even paralyzed and dying, spent his last ounce of energy to wink at her. That wink was not a goodbye, it was a cry for help. "I can't let him die," Anna said to the empty street. "I can't." She stopped at the corner. To the right, the path to the low-income neighborhood where she lived. To the left, the wide avenue leading to the affluent neighborhood, the neighborhood of the mansion. Anna turned left. She walked for almost an hour. Her feet ached in her worn sneakers. The cold seeped through the tears in her uniform, but adrenaline kept her blood warm. She needed the proof, Richard's phone, the audio. She saw him using the device before he fell. She saw him reaching into the sofa seconds before the attack. Laura, in the arrogance of someone who has already won, probably didn't even look. The police, satisfied with the poison in the maid's pocket, likely didn't search the sofa either. It was there. It had to be. When the Ferraz mansion appeared at the end of the street, it looked like a castle from a horror movie. The windows, usually bright and welcoming, were now black holes in the white facade. Iron Gate was closed, but there were no security guards. Laura must have taken everyone to the hospital to ensure no one got close to Richard. Anna felt her stomach churn. If she got caught there, violating the restraining order, her life would be over. She circled the block, heading to the back. The wall there was lower, covered by thick ivy. Anna knew that blind spot. Once, the gardener had forgotten the key and jumped over there. She threw the cloth bag over the wall, grabbed the thick branches of the vine, and pulled her body up. Her arms trembled with effort. A loose stone from the wall scraped her knee, tearing her tights and drawing blood, but she bit her lip to avoid screaming and propelled herself forward. She fell on the other side, into the soft, damp grass of the winter garden. The impact made her ankle throb. The silence in the house was absolute. Even the crickets seemed to lack the courage to sing there. Anna crept through the shadows, pressed against the wall of the house. She reached the window of the service area, locked. She went to the kitchen door, locked. Panic began to rise in her throat. What if she couldn't get in? Then her eyes landed on the small window in the pantry. It was ajar. Just a crack left open for Laura's Persian cat, Mimi, to come and go at night. It was narrow, very narrow. Anna silently dragged a trash can to the wall, climbed up, and carefully pushed the glass. The hinge creaked with a high-pitched sound that seemed like thunder in the silence. She froze, waiting for nothing. She got her head through, then her shoulders. The metal frame pressed against her ribs. She had to exhale to get her hips through. The metal scraped her skin, hurting, but she twisted and fell into the dark pantry. In the fall, her foot hit a metal shelf. A can of peaches tumbled down. Clang, clang, clang. The noise of the can rolling on the floor of... The ceramic was deafening. Anna curled up on the floor, covering her head, waiting for the lights to come on, the shots, the screams. Her heart was beating so hard it hurt in her chest. 1, 2, 3 minutes passed. Nothing. The house remained silent. She stood up shakily, brushed the dust off her uniform, and crossed the stainless steel kitchen, which gleamed ghostly under the moonlight streaming through the window. She passed through the service hallway and reached the living room. The crime scene. The room was cordoned off with yellow police tape. Crime scene, do not cross. There was something profane about that tape. The smell of the room was still the same as that fateful night. The sweet, cloying perfume of Laura, the acrid scent of spilled champagne on the rug, and more subtly, the metallic smell of dried blood where Richard had bitten his lip. Anna ducked under the yellow tape, feeling like an intruder in her own story. She went to the caramel leather sofa, knelt on the floor, exactly where Laura had been sitting, watching her fiancé die. Anna felt a chill at the nape of her neck, as if the ghost of Laura's malice was sitting there laughing at her. "Please, God," she whispered. She shoved her hand into the deep crevice between the seat cushions. Her fingers groped the darkness of the upholstery, finding coins, crumbs, a pen. Cold sweat began to trickle down her back. What if the police took it? What if Laura had found it? She pushed her hand deeper until her wrist scratched against the hard leather. Her fingers touched something smooth, cold, rectangular. Anna held her breath. She pulled out Richard's black iPhone. Anna let out a muffled sob, clutching the device against her chest as if it were a child. There was her salvation, her freedom. She pressed the side button to check. The screen lit up, illuminating her face with a ghostly white light. The lock screen was a landscape of mountains where Richard loved to hike. In the upper right corner, the battery icon was red, 3%. "Thank God," she cried softly. "Here it is. I got it." She was about to stand up, to run out of there, go straight to the police station, shove that phone in the arrogant detective's face and save Richard. But then the garden outside lit up. Powerful xenon headlights swept through the room across the linen curtains, cutting through the darkness like knives of light. The sound of a V8 engine roared at the garage entrance, followed by the sound of tires screeching on gravel. Anna froze. The blood drained from her face. Someone had arrived. Car doors slammed. Voices. She knew all too well. "Are you sure you locked the electronic gate, Carter? I don't want the press snooping around here." It was Laura's voice, shrill, irritated, devoid of any trace of the grieving widow from the police station. "I locked it. Relax. No one gets in here." "The house is sealed by the police, woman," replied a thick, arrogant male voice. Anna recognized it immediately. Dr. Carter, the family doctor, the specialist who had been treating Richard's mysterious illness for months, the man Richard trusted with his very life. The key turned in the front door. The lock clicked. Anna looked around desperately. She was in the middle of the room, exposed. There was no time to run to the kitchen. They were crossing the hallway. The sofa wasn't high enough to hide her. The curtain, the heavy brown velvet curtain covering the glass door to the balcony. It was the only place. Anna threw herself behind the curtain, pressing against the cold glass of the balcony door. She held her breath, praying her feet weren't showing beneath the hem of the fabric. The living room door opened. The light from the crystal chandelier was turned on, flooding the room with brightness. "What a poor smell," Laura complained as she entered, tossing her designer bag onto an armchair. The sound of her heels echoed on the wooden floor. Tap, tap, tap. "It's the smell of that maid's fear." Dr. Carter laughed. "You should have seen her face when the detective found the glass in his pocket. It was Oscar-worthy, Laura. You outdid yourself." Anna peeked through a tiny crack between the velvet and the wall. Laura looked stunning even at 4 a.m. She wore a tight, low-cut black dress, mourning sexy. Dr. Carter, a tall man with graying hair and an imposing posture, walked to the bar and opened a bottle of champagne. The cork popped with a festive sound that felt obscene in that house marked by tragedy. "Let's toast," Carter said, handing a glass to Laura and embracing her waist with possessive intimacy. Anna felt her stomach churn. They were lovers all along. Richard was surrounded by snakes in his own bed and in the office. To the end of Richard, Carter raised his glass, and to the beginning of our management of the Faraz fortune. "Don't celebrate yet, Carter." Laura took a long sip, her eyes fixed on the rug where Richard had fallen. "That bastard is strong. The poison paralyzed him, but his heart keeps beating. The heart monitor in the ICU sounded like a war drum. He's fighting. It's only a matter of time, my love." Carter sat on the sofa. Exactly. On the sofa where Anna had found the phone seconds before. He ran his hand over the leather as if he were already the owner of it all. "The potassium I'm going to inject into his IV tomorrow at 9 a.m. will cause a sudden cardiac arrest." Anna's eyes widened. In the darkness of her hiding place, potassium injection, cold-blooded murder scheduled, less than 5 hours left. "Are you sure it's safe?" Laura paced nervously. "What if they request an autopsy? I'll sign the death certificate." "Laura," Carter reassured her, "I'm the responsible doctor. Cause of death? Multiple organ failure due to prior poisoning. End of story. The body." Anna was heading to the crematorium before lunch. In the afternoon, she would be the richest and most coveted widow in Las Vegas, and I, the man who would console her. "And the maid?" Laura asked, stopping in her tracks. "The maid is the cherry on top. The poison was with her. She'll get 30 years. She'll die in prison. She's the perfect culprit. No one will ever look at us. Anna felt warm, silent tears streaming down her face. They had planned every detail. Richard's life, her freedom, her mother's pain. Everything was just a stepping stone for them to climb the social ladder. Hatred began to boil within her, replacing fear. Suddenly, Richard's phone, which Anna was clutching tightly against her chest, vibrated. It was a short, dry sound, the critical battery warning, 1%. But in the silent room, that buzz sounded like thunder. Laura paused with the glass on its way to her mouth. Carter froze on the sofa. "What was that?" Laura asked, her eyes narrowing like a snake's. What?" Carter asked, already on high alert. A vibration noise. It sounded like a phone. Anna stopped breathing. Her heart was pounding so hard against her ribs that she thought they could hear it. Thump, 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 thump. It must be the refrigerator, Laura, or the wind. You're paranoid. No. Laura slammed the glass down on the coffee table, spilling champagne. It came from the window. She began to walk toward the curtain where Anna was. Click, click. The footsteps of death were approaching. Anna looked back. The glass door to the balcony was locked from the inside with a security latch. If she tried to open it, it would make noise. If she stayed there, she would be discovered. And they wouldn't call the police this time. They would kill her, right there, and say she broke in to attack them. Self-defense. Laura was 2 meters away. Anna could see her elongated shadow projected on the living room floor. "Is there someone there?" Laura whispered, signaling to Carter, who grabbed a heavy bottle of whiskey by the neck, using it as a club. Laura extended her hand with her long red nails to pull the fabric of the curtain. Anna didn't think. The survival instinct took over. The moment Laura touched the velvet, Anna violently pulled the curtain open, screaming with all her lung power to scare them. "Ah!" The effect was immediate. Laura, caught off guard, screamed and stumbled over her own high heels, falling backward onto the wooden floor. "It's her!" Laura yelled, rolling on the floor. "Get her, Carter!" Dr. Carter jumped off the sofa, knocking over the coffee table, charging like a bull. Anna didn't wait. She ran toward the kitchen. It was her only chance. The back exit, the pantry window, anything. "Come back here, you bitch!" Carter roared, running after her. He was fast, much faster than Anna had imagined. Anna slipped on the waxed floor of the hallway, violently hitting her shoulder against the corner of the wall, pain radiating through her arm, but she didn't let go of the phone. That was Richard's life. She entered the kitchen, tried the locked back door. Damn. She needed the key that was on the hook. She fumbled along the wall in the dark. Where's the key? Where's the damn key? Carter's heavy footsteps entered the kitchen. "Got you!" The large, strong hands of the doctor grabbed Anna's uniform from behind. He pulled her with brutal force, throwing her against the marble island. The impact knocked all the air out of Anna's lungs. Her spine cracked. The phone slipped from her sweaty hand and slid across the kitchen floor, stopping under the refrigerator. "No! Anna!" he shouted, trying to reach the device. Carter leaned against the marble, his hands going straight for her neck. His thumbs pressed against her trachea. His once elegant face was now a red mask of murderous rage. "You heard it, right? You heard what you shouldn't?" he growled, tightening. "What a shame. We'll let you live in prison. Now you're going to have to suffer a fatal accident here." Anna scratched his hands, kicked his shins, but he didn't budge. Black spots began to dance in her vision. Air wasn't coming in. The world was darkening. "Laura, bring the knife!" Carter shouted to the living room, not releasing Anna's neck. "Let's say she broke in with a knife, and I had to defend myself." Laura appeared in the kitchen doorway, disheveled, her eyes shining with madness. She held a large chef's knife that she had taken from the silverware in the dining room. "Hold her tight, Carter," Laura said, smiling. "I'm going to love doing this." Anna looked at the gleaming blade approaching, glancing at the fallen phone 3 meters away. She was going to die there in the kitchen she had cleaned with such care, murdered by the people who swore to protect Richard. No. A primal fury exploded within Anna, the fury of someone who was tired of being a victim. She gathered all the strength left in her legs and, bending her knee, delivered a precise and violent kick between Carter's legs. The doctor let out a guttural sound, a howl of pure pain. His eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. The pressure on Anna's neck vanished instantly. He fell to his knees, vomiting and holding his groin. Anna gasped for air, choking, and threw herself to the floor, sliding toward the refrigerator. "You bitch!" Laura shouted, advancing with the raised knife. "Die!" Laura brought the blade down with force. Anna rolled to the side at the last second. The knife struck the porcelain tile, sparking mere millimeters from Anna's ear. Anna used the momentum and kicked Laura's ankle. The villain, unbalanced by her heels, fell on top of the groaning doctor on the floor. It was the fraction of a second Anna needed. She grabbed the phone, rang. She got up. The glass door leading to the garden was locked without a key. Anna didn't hesitate. She grabbed a heavy cast-iron skillet from the drying rack. With a war cry, she spun her body and hurled the skillet against the tempered glass. Crack! The glass shattered into 1,000 pieces, raining shards over the garden. Anna covered her face with her arm and jumped through the jagged opening. Glass shards tore through her uniform, cutting her arms and legs. But the pain was just fuel. Now she fell onto the wet grass outside, rolled and got up running. "Get her! Shoot her!" Laura's hysterical voice came from inside the brightly lit kitchen. Anna didn't look back. She ran toward the back wall. Her ankle hurt, the cuts burned, her neck throbbed where Dr. Carter had choked her. But she flew, jumped the wall, landing in the back alley. Either way she ran until her lungs burned like fire, until the taste of blood filled her mouth. She crossed neighborhoods, alleys, squares. She only stopped when her legs failed her, and she collapsed inside a concrete playground in an empty park. Miles away, trembling, dirty from dirt and blood, she pulled the phone from her pocket. "I did it." She sobbed, laughing and crying, hysteria taking over. "I did it, Mr. Richard. Here it is." She wiped the blood from the screen with her torn sleeve, pressed the side button. She needed to hear the recording. She needed to make sure she was safe. The screen lit up. The Apple logo shone for a second, and then the screen went black. In the center, a red battery icon blinked once, and then disappeared. Anna pressed the button again, frantically. "No, no, no, no." She banged on the phone. "Call, please, call." Nothing. Dead. The battery was dead. Anna rested her head on the cold concrete, despair returning with full force. But then an even worse thought hit her, a thought that made her blood run colder than the early morning chill. When the screen lit up in the mansion, she saw the lock. The phone had a password. Richard was a businessman. The phone was secured. Even if she found a charger now, she didn't have the numeric password, and she remembered vividly Richard setting up the device months ago. "Biometric, Anna, it's the safest. Only my finger unlocks this." Anna looked at the useless black device in her hand. She had the proof, she had the confession, but it was locked inside an impenetrable digital vault. And the only key to open that vault was Richard's index and finger. The finger of a man who was in a coma, watched by killers inside the ICU of a hospital miles away. Anna looked at the sky that was beginning to lighten on the horizon. It was almost 5 a.m. The potassium injection would be at 9, 4 hours. She had 4 hours to enter a guarded hospital, get past security, reach the ICU, take the finger of a dying man, and unlock the phone. All while being hunted by the police. Anna wiped her tears. The crying was over. There was no more time for fear. She lifted her head, her eyes burning with a determination she didn't know she had. "I'm going to enter that hospital," she whispered to the dawn, "even if I have to set the whole city on fire." She tucked the dead phone into her bra, near her heart, and began to walk, limping, bleeding, but not stopping. The war had begun. The dawn sky brought no hope. It was the color of a purple and grey bruise weighing down on the rooftops of the slum. When Anna finally turned the corner of the cobblestone street, her lungs burned as if she had swallowed ground glass. Her legs trembled not only from the marathon effort of fleeing the mansion, but from the toxic adrenaline of fear. The cut on her arm, a bright red line made by the window shards, pulsed in a painful rhythm, sticking the fabric of her uniform to her skin. She stopped in front of a rusty iron gate, peeling with age. Dogs barked in the distance, a constant soundtrack of that forgotten neighborhood. It was Mr. Johnson's house, the family driver for the Faraz family for 20 years. The man who had seen her grow up, who had given her a ride the day her mother fell ill, and who had been summarily fired by Laura the night before, as if he were disposable trash. Anna knocked on the cold metal with her injured hand. The sound was metallic and hollow. "Mr. Johnson," she called, trying to shout without waking the neighborhood, but the urgency in her voice was uncontrollable. "Open, please, it's Anna." Silence, just the sound of the wind hitting a loose tile on the roof. The house seemed closed, dead. "Mr. Johnson, I know you're there. Please, they will kill Mr. Richard." The yellow light on. The porch turned on, casting long shadows on the concrete yard. Heavy, dragging footsteps approached. The front window creaked open with the sound of old hinges, and a tired, swollen face of someone who hadn't slept appeared between the protective bars. Johnson held a kitchen knife in his hand, his eyes wide with fear and distrust. Anna squinted, trying to focus on the ragged figure at the gate. "My goodness, girl, you escaped from jail. The police are hunting you on television. I saw it in the morning news. I didn't escape, Mr. Johnson. I was released. They killed bodies." Anna moved closer to the bars, ignoring the gleam of the knife. She gripped the cold bars. "But I need your help. Laura, she and Dr. Carter, they are lovers. They planned everything." Johnson slowly lowered the knife, but made no move to open the gate. He shook his head, an expression of disbelief. Anna felt pain and defeat on her face. "Anna, please leave. For God's sake, I have family. That woman is the devil. Her head of security called me early this morning. He said if I said anything about the house, he would burn my place down. I was fired with nothing, Anna, nothing. 20 years of service thrown away." Mr. Johnson listened intently. Anna frantically reached into her bra, pulling out her black phone, now a dead weight, cold and out of battery. "I took Mr. Richard's phone. I broke into the mansion and got it. He recorded everything. Her confession is in here, but it's locked and out of battery. I need to get into the hospital to unlock it with his fingerprint." Mr. Johnson looked at the phone, then at Anna's red, desperate eyes. He saw the dried blood on her forehead, the torn, clothes dirty with earth and grass. He witnessed the insane courage of someone who had nothing left to lose, except the truth. "They're going to inject potassium into him at 9 a.m., Anna said, her voice breaking, tears falling again. "Less than 3 hours left. If you don't help me, the man who paid for your daughter's college will die in a hospital bed, thinking no one fought for him." That hit Mr. Johnson like a physical punch. He stepped back. Richard had paid for Marissa's nursing school when the bank denied the loan. Richard had paid for Mrs. Smith's cataract surgery. Richard was a good man surrounded by wolves. A hand touched Mr. Johnson's shoulder. It was Mrs. Smith, his wife, in her nightgown, her face marked with worry. She had heard everything. "Mr. Johnson," she said firmly, "open that gate. It's dangerous." "Dangerous is living without honor, woman. Open it. The girl is bleeding." Mr. Johnson closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and cursed softly. The sound of the key turning in the gate's lock was the most beautiful music Anna had ever heard that night. "Get in before some nosy neighbor sees you," he grumbled, opening the space. "You look terrible, girl. It's like you fought a tractor and lost." Half an hour later, in Mr. Johnson's simple, clean kitchen, the strong smell of coffee tried to combat the scent of fear. Mrs. Smith was cleaning Anna's wounds with cotton, alcohol, and tears in her eyes, murmuring prayers softly. Anna barely felt the sting. Her mind was timing the seconds. Mr. Johnson paced back and forth, nervously sketching an imaginary map on the worn formica table. "The hospital is surrounded, Anna," he said, his voice tense. "I know the setup. Laura hired Black Falcon, that private. Security made up of ex-cops. There are 2 armed guards at the ICU door and a civil officer at the reception due to the media's attention on the case. You won't get in through the front door, not even if you were the Pope. They have your picture." "I need to get in," Anna insisted, holding the phone that was now connected to an old charger plugged into the wall. The screen showed 15% battery. She dared not turn it on yet. She needed to save every electron for the crucial moment. "Your daughter, Marissa, she still works at the hospital laundry, right?" Mr. Johnson stopped abruptly. He looked at Anna with terror. "Anna, you will not involve my daughter in this. She just graduated, got that job in supervision. If she gets caught helping a fugitive, she loses her license, loses everything. I don't want her to know." Anna held his arm. "I swear, Mr. Johnson, I won't involve Marissa. I just need access. The dirty laundry cart schedule, a uniform, anything." Mr. Johnson looked at the wall clock, shaped like a plate. 6:15 a.m. He rubbed his tired eyes. "The delivery shift starts at 7. The laundry truck comes in the back at the loading dock. The driver is my buddy, Tony. He owes me a favor from a game. Lost $500 to me last week." Anna felt a jolt of hope. "He'll get me in. He'll bring the cart inside. If you're going to be in the cart, under it, or disguised as a trash bag, that's your problem." Mr. Johnson grabbed the keys to the old minivan from the top of the refrigerator. "And if he asks, I'll say you're my niece from the countryside, needing a side job." Anna disconnected the phone from the charger. 22%, it would have to be enough. She tucked the device and the cable into the deep pocket of her uniform. She hugged Mrs. Smith quickly, feeling the frail body of the woman tremble. "God protect you, my daughter," Mrs. Smith whispered, kissing her forehead. "Let's go," Mr. Johnson said, opening the door. "We don't have time to breathe." The Central Hospital was a fortress of mirrored glass and concrete. Patrol cars were parked at the main entrance in alert angles, with their lights off but their presence intimidating. Journalists crowded the sidewalk like vultures, with cameras and microphones waiting for the official news of the billionaire's death. Mr. Johnson parked the minivan 2 streets back, in a dark alley near the service entrance, where the smell of hospital waste and diesel smoke lingered in the air. There, Mr. Johnson pointed to a white box truck backing up to the loading dock. "That's Tony." Mr. Johnson got out and went to talk to the driver. Anna watched from afar, her heart in her throat. She saw the 2 men talking. Tony shook his head negatively, crossing his arms. Mr. Johnson insisted, gesturing. Tony seemed unyielding. Then Mr. Johnson took off his wristwatch, a gold Seiko that Richard had given him as a 15th anniversary gift, and placed it in his friend's hand. Tony looked at the watch, sighed, and made a discreet signal. John ran back to the car, sweating despite the cold wind. "It's done. It cost me my watch, but it's done." He took a deep breath, trying to control the tremor in his hands, but he said the security was doubled inside. "They're doing manual metal detector checks on everyone at the employee entrance. You won't get through with that phone if they search you properly." Anna froze. The blood drained from her face. "What now?" "Now we improvise." John opened the trunk and pulled out an old, dusty toolbox. He rummaged through rags and screwdrivers until he pulled out a bundle of dark blue fabric stained with grease. "Take this." It's my old mechanic's coverall. He tossed the coverall to her. It smelled of burnt oil and old gasoline. Put this over your uniform. Tuck all your hair inside this gas station cap and smear grease on your face. If they ask, you're Junior, his mute assistant. The other assistant is hungover and didn't come. Anna put on the coverall. It was huge. The legs were too long. The sleeves swallowed her hands, but it covered her torn and bloodied maid uniform. She tied her hair in a tight bun and hid it under the old gas station cap. She ran her hand over the dirty floor of the car and rubbed grease on her cheek and forehead. "And the phone?" she asked, feeling the weight of the device in her pocket. "If it beeps at the detector in your pocket, put it in your boot or your underwear, if you had any." John tried a nervous joke that fell flat. The metal detector is manual. They check the torso and waist. They rarely go down to the feet if you're pushing heavy loads. If it beeps on your leg, pretend you have a surgical pin. Limp, make a scene. Anna took off her sneakers, placed the phone inside her thick sock on the inner side of her right ankle, praying it wouldn't break the screen from the friction. She put her sneakers back on. It hurt. "Let's go." John held her face for a second. "Anna, if they catch you, I've never seen you. Oh no. Thank you, Mr. John." The walk to the loading dock felt like a march to the gallows. Anna kept her head down, shoulders hunched, trying to look like a small, tired man. Tony, the driver, said nothing, didn't even look at her, just opened the side door of the truck and pointed to a huge metal cart filled with white sheets wrapped in plastic. "Push this and don't open your mouth," he whispered quickly. "If you sneeze, I'll turn you in." Anna grabbed the cart. The wheels squeaked. They entered the loading zone. An armed security guard in tactical gear with a clipboard stopped the group at the ramp. "Badge," Tony showed his hanging around his neck, and the assistant. The guard pointed his pen at Anna. His gaze was clinical, suspicious. Anna felt sweat trickle down her back inside the hot coverall. "It's new," Tony replied quickly, chewing gum. "The other guy is hungover, didn't even get out of bed. I had to bring my nephew to help. I forgot to pick up the supplies at the front desk, boss. Let me through. The ICU is urgently requesting sterile sheets. You know how the billionaire's case is? It's driving everyone crazy up there. They change his sheets every half hour." The guard looked at Anna. Anna kept her eyes on the ground, pretending to wipe her nose with the dirty, greasy sleeve. "Run the detector." The guard grabbed the black stick from the table. Anna's heart stopped. The guard ran the stick over Tony's body. "Beep, belt buckle." "Okay." Then he came to Anna, ran it over her arms. "Beep, what's this?" the guard asked, touching her chest. "Button on the coverall," Tony said, bored. "It's metal." The guard grunted, lowered the stick to her waist, ran it over her thighs. He was going down, getting close to her knee, just a bit more, and he'd reach her ankle. Anna held her breath. If it beeped there, what would she say? Pin in the ankle, and what if he ordered her to lift the leg of her pants? The stick was at her calf. Suddenly a loud crash from the street. Whoa! A car alarm went off wildly. Not a regular alarm, but one of those ridiculous custom sirens that played the theme from The Godfather. It was John's minivan. He had done it on purpose. The guard looked outside, irritated, distracted by the infernal noise. What the hell is that? Who's the idiot? Must be some visitor parking where they shouldn't. Tony seized the opportunity, gently pushing Anna's cart. "And hey, boss, the sheet is going to get cold. Mrs. Laura is going to eat your liver if the bed isn't ready." The name Laura worked like magic. The guard, afraid of the relentless boss, put away the stick before reaching Anna's feet. "Go, go, get out of my sight." Anna pushed the cart into the cold, white, sterile hallway. Her legs felt like jelly. She wanted to vomit from relief. "Third floor." "Whoa, B," Tony whispered, not looking at her, and turned to the other side with another cart toward the laundry. "From here, you're a ghost. If they catch you, I've never seen you." Anna was in. The hospital smelled of ether, liquid soap, and contained suffering. Anna pushed the sheet cart to the freight elevator. It was empty. She pressed the button for 3 with her elbow to avoid leaving greasy fingerprints. As the elevator ascended, she began her transformation. She frantically took off the dirty coverall, crumpling it in the corner of the cart. Underneath, the maid uniform was filthy, unwearable. She tore the plastic from one of the packages of clean sheets. They weren't sheets, they were lab coats. White medical lab coats sent for sterilization. Luck, she thought, or fate. She put on a lab coat. It was a bit big, but she rolled up the sleeves, let her hair down from the cap, and tied it in a tight, professional bun. Anna wiped the grime from her face with her own saliva and the sleeve of her jumpsuit before hiding it at the bottom of the cart. Now she was no longer the maid nor the mechanic. She looked like an exhausted resident or a nursing technician. The door opened on the 3rd floor. The air here was different, heavier, quieter. The air conditioning was stronger, cold. The intermittent sound of heart monitors, beep, 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 was the soundtrack of death that lingered in that corridor. Anna pushed the cart, using it as a shield and disguise. At the end of the corridor, she saw the double doors of the ICU, the VIP area. 2 security guards in black suits, the same ones from the Black Falcon company that had stormed the mansion, stood like gargoyles in front of the frosted glass door. They had earpieces and arms crossed in front of their bodies. There was no way to get past them. They knew her face. They had orders to shoot, to kill, or apprehend. Anna quickly retreated to a nook where the vending machines for coffee and snacks were located. She looked at the digital clock on the wall. 08:15. 45 minutes until the lethal injection. She needed to get those men away. But how? She looked around, saw the fire alarm panel on the opposite wall. In case of emergency, break the glass. If she triggered it, the whole hospital would go on alert. Fire doors would automatically close and chaos would ensue. Sirens would sound, but would the ICU security leave their post? Probably not. Laura's orders were specific and paranoid. No one enters, no one leaves Richard's room, fire or flood. They would remain stationed there. She needed something more direct, something that would play on their fear. Anna saw a nurse exit a break room, leaving the door ajar as she went to the restroom. Anna waited for her to turn the corner and entered the room. There was a coffee maker on, bags on the table, and a landline phone on the wall. Anna picked up the phone, saw the laminated list of extensions on the wall. ICU Nursing Station Extension 304. She dialed, and through the glass of the corridor ahead, she saw one of the nurses at the station answer the phone. ICU, good morning. Anna covered the mouthpiece with a dish towel that was on the sink to muffle and disguise her voice. This is the main reception. There's a commotion down here. Mrs. Laura, she fainted. She's having a heart attack in the lobby. She's screaming for her security now. What? The nurse seemed confused and scared, but they had strict orders to stay at the door of the room. It's Mrs. Laura who is calling the shots. Anna! She shouted into the phone, mimicking the hysterical tone of a panicked receptionist. She said if they don't come down now to carry her out, they're all fired for cause. It's a medical emergency with the owner of the money. Send them now. Anna hung up before they could ask questions. She peeked through the crack of the break room door, saw the nurse from the station run to the security guards at the glass door. She gestured frantically, pointing down. The guards exchanged glances, hesitated. One of them grabbed the radio, trying to confirm with the floor team. Don't use the radio, you idiot! Get down here! Anna mentally pleaded, pressing her fingers against the doorframe. The radio must have been busy or out of signal in that concrete bunker because the guard cursed, hit the device, signaled to his partner, and the two ran toward the public elevators. Their loyalty was to Laura's money, not to the security of protocol. The fear of being fired spoke louder. The corridor was clear. For now, Anna left the break room. She walked quickly, with firm steps of someone who belonged there, but without running to avoid drawing attention. She passed the nursing station with her head down, pretending to read a clipboard she had picked up from the empty counter. The nurses were distracted, discussing Laura's attack. Room 302. Richard Smith. The door was closed. There was a no visitation sign. Anna turned the unlocked doorknob. She entered and gently closed the door behind her, leaning her back against the cold wood. She locked the door from the inside. The silence of the room was broken only by the rhythmic and mechanical sound of the ventilator and the heart monitor. Slack, beep, beep. The room was dim. The blackout curtains were drawn, creating a tomb-like atmosphere. Richard lay in bed, surrounded by tubes, wires, and machines, flashing green and red lights. He looked smaller, more fragile. His skin was grey, almost translucent. His arms were covered in needle bruises. Anna rushed to the bed. The tears she had held back all morning, through the escape, the invasion, and the fear, finally overflowed. "Mr. Richard," she whispered, reverently touching his hand. The hand was cold, inert. "I'm here, I'm back. Sorry for the delay." She looked at his face. His eyes were closed. There was no sign of that fluttering eyelid. He seemed to have gone away. "Mr. Richard, if you can hear me, please don't give up. I need you to help me just one more time. I know you're tired, but I won't let them win. I love you too much to let this happen." She confessed for the first time aloud to the empty room. It wasn't love of gratitude. It was a woman's love. She took her phone out of her pocket. The ankle was marked by the device. She dialed. The Apple logo glowed. It seemed to take an eternity. Anna looked at the door every second, waiting to see the doorknob turn. Finally, the lock screen appeared. Slide to unlock. Anna slid her finger across the screen. Touch ID or code required. Anna held Richard's right hand. The index finger was stiff. The paralysis and the cold air from the air conditioning had stiffened the joints. It felt... Anna touched the wax, not human skin. "Sorry, this might hurt a little," Anna murmured, forcing Richard's finger to stretch. She carefully positioned the phone, pressing the pad of Richard's finger against the home button. The phone vibrated. "Try again." Anna's heart stopped. "Don't do this to me," she whispered. She wiped his finger with the sleeve of her lab coat. Maybe it was sweat, maybe it was dry skin, or maybe, just maybe, the circulation was so weak that the sensor couldn't recognize the heat. She tried again, pressing more firmly, attempting to mimic the pressure of a living finger. "Try again." Panic exploded in Anna's chest. What if the biometrics didn't work? Who was in a state of near death? What if his body was already giving up? She glanced at the heart monitor. 48 beats per minute. Falling, he was fading away. The cold was winning. "No, Richard, please." Anna took his hand and placed it between her own. She rubbed his skin vigorously, then brought his hand to her own neck to warm it against her warm skin. "I know you're there. Wake up the finger. Send blood to the finger, please, for me." She blew on his finger, gently rubbing to activate the capillary circulation. Come on, she pleaded. Third attempt. If it failed too many times, the phone would ask for the numeric password and lock the biometrics. This was the last chance. She positioned the finger, held her breath, closed her eyes. Click. The soft sound of unlocking. Anna opened her eyes. The home screen filled with colorful icons was there, accessible. "Thank you, my God, thank you," she sobbed, trembling so much that she almost dropped the device on the bed. She went straight to the recording icon. There was a recent recording from yesterday, 7:42 p.m. duration, 14 minutes. Title, New Recording. Anna pressed play, turned the volume up to the maximum, bringing it closer to her ear. First, static, the sound of fabric rustling, the phone being hidden in the sofa. Then, silence, the sound of high heels. Then, Laura's voice, crystal clear, arrogant, cruel. "I thought this rat poison would never take effect. You're tough, my love. But it's finally over." Anna felt a shiver run through her soul. There was the absolute proof, the confession of murder in high-definition audio. She needed to save that, get it out of there, send it to the cloud, to the police, to the newspaper, to the world. She tapped share, selected WhatsApp. She tried to connect to the hospital Wi-Fi. Hospital visitors, connecting. The loading bar spun. Connection failed. Damn it. Anna cursed. The Wi-Fi signal wouldn't reach the fortified room. She disabled the Wi-Fi, tried 4G, 1 bar, signal fluctuating between 3G and no service. The ICU walls were lined with lead to shield against X-ray radiation. The room was a Faraday cage. She opened WhatsApp, tried to send the file to her mother's number, sending 1%. The blue bar wasn't moving. Anna raised the phone high, standing on her tiptoes. Nothing. She ran to the window, pulled back the blackout curtain. The glass was thick, fortified, sending 5%. It was going, slow, but going. Suddenly, the sound of a key turning in the door lock. Anna froze. She didn't have time to hide under the bed. She turned, hiding the phone behind her back, her heart racing. The door opened. It wasn't security. It wasn't the nurse. It was Dr. Carter. He entered, closing the door behind him with a soft click, looking at a medical clipboard, whistling softly. "Good morning, Richard. Time for your final medication. Let's get this over with." He stopped in the middle of the room. He saw Anna. There was a second of absolute silence. Time froze. Carter's brain tried to process the impossible image. The fugitive maid, dressed as a doctor, standing next to the bed of the man he was about to kill. Anna saw his eyes move from her face to the hand hidden behind her back, to the glow of the phone screen reflected in the glass of the window behind her. "You?" Carter whispered incredulously. Then a crooked smile formed on his lips. "How the hell did a rat like you get in here?" Anna backed up to the head of the bed, physically placing herself between the murderous doctor and the defenseless patient. "Stay away from him," Anna shouted. Her voice was no longer one of fear. It was that of a lioness protecting her cub. "I know everything. I have the recording. If you take one more step, I'll send it to the police right now. It's already sending." Carter looked at the phone in her hand, then glanced at the walls of the room. He laughed, a calm, terrifying laugh from someone who had control. He took the key from his pocket and locked the door again, pocketing the key. "You're not sending anything, dear," he said in a soft, didactic voice. He reached into the pocket of his lab coat and pulled out a prepared syringe. The liquid inside was clear and lethal, pure potassium, because there's no cell signal in this room. The walls are shielded with lead. "Didn't you know? You trapped yourself in a cage with me." Anna looked at the screen, sending failure. The red error circle appeared. The file hadn't gone through. The evidence was trapped in the device, and she was trapped in the room. Carter advanced slowly, holding the syringe like a dagger. "And now I'll have to administer 2 doses, one for him to stop that stubborn heart, and one for the depressed one who, consumed by guilt, committed suicide next to her boss with an overdose of sedatives. It will be a romantic tragedy, Anna. The newspapers will love it." Anna looked at Richard, at his limp hand, and then at the medical gas panel on the wall behind the bed. Oxygen, compressed air, vacuum, and the high-voltage outlets for the support equipment. Life. She had no weapons. She was small. He was big, but she was in a room full of things that could explode, cut, or electrocute, and she had the rage of someone who had been humiliated. "Stay back," Anna warned, dropping the phone on the bed and grabbing the heavy metal IV stand with both hands, ripping it from the base. The IV bag burst, soaking the floor. "Ouch, Anna," Carter said, his cold, dead eyes preparing the needle. "No one will hear you scream in here." He attacked the ICU room. Designed to be a sanctuary of healing, it had turned into an arena of death. The sound of the IV stand hitting Carter's ribs echoed like a macabre gong. Clang! The doctor grunted, doubling over his own stomach. The impact was brutal, but not enough to take down a man driven by the desperation of watching his life crumble. The pain only fueled his fury. Carter was no longer the elegant and arrogant doctor. He was a cornered animal, teeth bared and bloodshot eyes, his filthy rage. He snarled, spitting saliva and hatred. "You think you can stop me with a piece of metal?" Anna backed away, tripping over the wires of the monitors. She held the IV pole, her hands trembling uncontrollably. "Stay back," she shouted, her voice cracking. "The police are coming. The police will find 2 bodies here." Carter advanced, ignoring the pain in his fractured ribs. He lunged at her with terrifying speed. Anna tried to strike him again, but Carter caught the metal pole in mid-air. With a violent tug, he ripped the weapon from her hands and threw it away. The stand slid across the linen floor with a shrill screech, knocking over trays of surgical instruments. Forceps, scissors, and scalpels rained down on the floor. Anna lost her balance and fell backward. The impact knocked the breath out of her lungs. Before she could roll to the side, Carter's weight crushed her against the cold floor. His scent, a nauseating mix of imported cologne, acidic sweat, and the metallic smell of blood from the scratch on his face, invaded Anna's nose, making her gag. "Shut up!" he screamed, drooling over her face. "It'll be quick. I'm a doctor. I know where it hurts less." His large hands that should save lives, closed around her neck, not to strangle her this time, but to immobilize her head against the ground. His other hand fumbled in his lab coat pocket, searching for the syringe that hadn't fallen. Anna thrashed like an animal caught in a trap. She scratched his face, digging her nails into his shaven skin, searching for his eyes. Carter screamed and shook his head when she hit his ear, but he didn't stop. He pulled out the syringe. The long needle glinted under the fluorescent white light, trembling inches from Anna's jugular. "Please stop!" Anna cried, gripping his wrist with both hands, using every fiber of strength she had left, her skinny arms against his brute force. The needle descended millimeter by millimeter. "Die. Die already, and leave me alone." Carter forced his arm down, his face contorted in a grimace of madness. Anna felt her muscles give way. The tip of the needle touched the skin of her neck, a cold prick announcing the end. She turned her face to the side, refusing to look at the murderer. Her eyes found the bed. Richard was there, motionless, a silent witness to her sacrifice. "Mr. Richard," she whispered, her strangled voice bidding farewell. I tried. It was in that split second that the sound of the room changed. The heart monitor, which had maintained a slow, hypnotic rhythm, went off. Beep, 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 beep. The frequency shot up to 120, 140, pure adrenaline being pumped by a heart that refused to stop. A shadow moved on the bed. It wasn't a slow movement of awakening. It was a kinetic explosion. A pale hand, covered in purple bruises from IV punctures, shot from the bed like a snake's strike. Richard's fingers closed around Carter's neck, who was leaning over Anna on the floor. It wasn't a weak grip of an invalid. It was the grip of a man who had accumulated hours of psychological torture, hatred, and helplessness, channeling all his remaining life energy into that one movement. Richard's fingers sank into the flesh of the doctor's throat. Carter choked. His eyes bulged from their sockets. The pressure on his trachea was so violent that it instantly cut off the airflow. Richard pulled with a guttural roar that seemed to come from the depths of the earth. He used the weight of his own body falling from the bed to drag Carter back. "Get your hands off her!" Richard's voice came out raspy, hoarse, terrifying. It was not the voice of a polished billionaire. It was the voice of a wounded lion defending his partner. Carter lost his balance. He was pulled back, falling onto the cold floor with a dull thud, hitting his head on the bed frame. The syringe flew from his hand, spinning in the air, and slid under the medicine cabinet. Anna coughed, desperately pulling air into her burning lungs, and crawled away from the doctor. She looked up, trembling. Richard was hanging out of the bed, his knees on the ground, his torso still on the mattress, tangled in sheets and tubes he had ripped off. His face was grey, covered in cold sweat, but his eyes were open and burned with a blue fire of pure fury. He was awake. He was looking at her. He gasped, extending his trembling hand toward her. "Mr. Richard," Anna sobbed, crawling to him and holding his hand. He was cold, but the grip was strong, yet the nightmare wasn't over. Carter, dazed and bleeding, tried to get up. He looked at Richard with superstitious terror. The body had risen. The perfect plan had failed. Impossible, Carter stammered, wiping the blood from his nose. The dose was supposed to paralyze for 24 hours. You should have been vegetating in hatred. Richard growled, trying to get to his feet, but his legs failed him and he fell again. "Hatred metabolizes quickly, Doctor." Carter saw his weakness. He saw that Richard could barely hold up his head. The doctor looked at the locked door, then at Anna and Richard, vulnerable on the floor. The killer's survival instinct spoke louder. He needed to finish the job. There were no witnesses outside. If he killed both of them now, he could still escape and say he was attacked. Carter saw a scalpel glinting on the floor near the foot of the bed. He picked it up. The small, sharp blade gleamed. "So, die both of you!" Carter shouted, rising and advancing with the scalpel. Anna stepped in front of Richard, spreading her arms like a human shield. "No!" she screamed. Carter raised his arm to strike. Bang! The door of the room exploded inward. It wasn't opened. It was kicked in with a tactical blow that shattered the lock and the wood of the frame. 3 tactical police officers, with vests and heavy weapons in hand, stormed into the room, followed by the hospital security chief, who Anna had tricked over the phone, but who had come to check on the commotion upon hearing the screams. "Police, drop the weapon on the floor now." The sergeant's shout was so loud it made the window panes vibrate. Carter froze with the scalpel in the air. Time stopped. 3 red laser sight dots danced on the chest of the doctor's white lab coat. "Drop it or I'll shoot you in the head," the sergeant roared, finger on the trigger. The scalpel fell from Carter's hand with a harmless clink on the floor. Carter raised his hands slowly, trembling, sweat running down his forehead and mixing with the blood. The arrogance had vanished. He was just a pathetic coward. "Don't shoot! I'm a doctor!" he whined in a high-pitched voice. "She attacked me, the maid. She went crazy. She tried to kill the patient, and I tried to defend myself." For a second, the officers hesitated, looking at Anna, dressed in a torn lab coat, and Richard lying on the floor. But Richard, with a titanic effort, raised his voice. "Liar!" He pointed his trembling finger at Carter. "Arrest that murderer!" The officers needed nothing more. They surged forward like a wave. One of them tripped Carter, slamming him face first into the floor violently. The doctor screamed as the officer's knee pressed into his back. "You have the right to remain silent." The officer shouted, pulling Carter's arms behind him, almost dislocating his shoulders. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut. Click, clack. It was the most beautiful sound Anna had ever heard in her life. Anna fell back, exhausted, resting her head against the side of the bed. Her whole body ached. A paramedic rushed to assist Richard, trying to lift him off the floor. "Sir, calm down. You need to lie down. Your vital signs are unstable." "Let me go." Richard pushed the man's hand away, refusing to lie down. He crawled until he was sitting on the floor next to Anna. He touched her face, examining the purple bruise on her neck where Carter had squeezed. "Anna, are you okay? Talk to me." Anna smiled through tears and grime. "I'm here, Richard. We made it. You're alive. Thanks to you." But the war was not over. Yet the general of the enemy army was still missing. The commotion in the hallway was deafening. Nurses, doctors, curious patients, and journalists who had broken through the blockade were crowding, and parting the sea among them like an icebreaker came Laura. She had just arrived at the hospital. She had been informed by the reception about her own heart attack, Anna's prank, and stormed up, furious, ready to fire the entire staff for incompetence. Upon seeing the police at the ICU door, her heart leaped, but not with fear, with hope. "It's over," she thought, a cruel smile forming at the corner of her lips. Carter succeeded. They found the bodies. Richard is dead, and the maid killed herself. She stopped in front of a mirror in the hallway, fixed her hair, intentionally smudged her mascara to look like she had been crying. She took a deep breath to get into character, the tragic widow, the role of her life. Laura burst into the room, bumping into a nurse. "What's happening here?" she shouted, her voice trembling and theatrical, bringing her hands to her mouth. "My fiancé, where is my Richard? Tell me he's not dead, for God's sake. Don't tell me it's too late." Silence fell over the room like a heavy cloak. The officers stepped back, parting to reveal him. Not dead, not in bed. Richard was sitting in a wheelchair that the nurse had brought in for examination. He slowly lifted his head. His eyes met Laura's. Laura froze mid-step. The blood drained from her face so quickly that she looked like a plaster statue. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water, soundlessly. "Richard," she whispered, her voice fading. It was like seeing a ghost. "Good morning, dear," Richard said. His voice was weak, hoarse, but laced with a deadly sarcasm that sliced through the air like a razor. "Sorry to disappoint, but it seems I'm just as you said last night. Tough to kill." Laura took a step back, hitting her back against the doorframe. Her eyes frantically scanned the room. She saw Anna sitting on the floor, alive, holding Richard's hand. She saw Carter handcuffed in the corner with a bleeding nose, avoiding looking at her. Her world crumbled in an instant. The perfect plan had turned to dust, but Laura was a survivor, a natural manipulator. Her brain worked at lightning speed. "Thank God!" she screamed, changing the expression of shock to relief in a millisecond. She ran to embrace Richard, throwing herself at his feet. "Love, I thought I lost you. This doctor called me saying you were having a cardiac arrest." Richard did not move. He did not touch her. He just looked at her with deep disgust. "What happened here?" Laura continued, crying profusely, clinging to Richard's legs. "That woman," she pointed an accusing finger at Anna. "She tried to kill you again. She broke into the ICU officer," she shouted to Officer Arnold, who had just entered the room, panting. "Arrest that woman. She's a psychopath. She wants to kill my fiancé." Officer Arnold, confused, looked from Laura to Anna. Laura's truth had always been the law for him. "Cuff the girl!" the officer ordered a policeman, pointing at Anna. "No!" Richard shouted, slamming his hand on the arm of the chair. "No one touches her." "Richard, you're confused, love," Laura said, caressing his face. "The poison affected your mind. She's dangerous. I'm here to protect you." Richard grabbed Laura's wrist and pushed her away with disgust, as if her skin were toxic. "Enough of the theatrics, Laura. The curtain is closed. The audience has left. What are you talking about? I'm your fiancé. I love you. I spent the night praying for you." Richard extended his hand to Anna. "Anna, the phone." Anna, still trembling, stood up. She took the black iPhone out of her lab coat pocket. The screen was cracked, smeared with blood and grease, but it was on. Richard took the device. He looked at Officer Arnold. "Officer Arnold, you arrested this girl yesterday based on that woman's word and planted evidence. You almost condemned an innocent and let my murderer go free. Now I want you to hear the word of the real criminal." Richard pressed play. The sound from the phone, amplified by the deadly silence of the room, echoed clear and loud. The audio quality was chilling. "I thought this rat poison would never take effect. You're tough to kill, my love. But it's finally over. Tomorrow is the wedding. Widow is a much more elegant title than divorced. I hope you don't stain the rug with drool when you die." Laura's voice filled the room. Each word was a nail in her coffin. The cruelty, the coldness, the confession of slow poisoning, the concern for the rug while her fiancé was dying. Officer Arnold paled. Sweat dripped down his forehead. He looked from Laura to Richard, realizing the weight of the lawsuit he would carry for judicial error. Laura listened to her own voice as if it were a death sentence. The mask fell. The fake crying stopped instantly. Her face twisted into a mask of pure hatred, ugly and distorted. When the audio ended, Richard looked at her. "The only poison in this story, Laura, has always been you, and I drank from it for too long." Laura let out a hysterical scream, backing away. "This is a setup. It's artificial intelligence. They forged this. She's the one who set everything up. She wants my money. Are you going to believe these people? I am Laura Bittencourt." Richard made a tired gesture to the officer. "Arrest her for attempted murder in the first degree. Procedural fraud, false imprisonment, conspiracy and torture. I think 30 years is too little, isn't it, Arnold?" The officer, trying to save the rest of his career, did not hesitate. He knew which way the wind was blowing now. "Mrs. Laura Bittencourt, you are under arrest for a felony." He pulled out the handcuffs. Laura went into a frenzy. She tried to run. She pushed the officer and ran into the hallway, knocking over a tray of medications. "Let me go. You can't arrest me. I know the governor. I will ruin your lives," she screamed as two officers grabbed her in the hallway. The journalists' cameras flashed. Laura was filmed being thrown against the wall, disheveled, makeup smeared, shouting obscenities. The click of the handcuffs on her wrists was broadcast live across the country. The society lady had fallen. In the room, silence returned, but now it was a silence of peace, of cleansing. Richard leaned back in the chair, exhausted, as if he had run a marathon. He looked at Carter, who was being lifted by the officers to be taken away. "Get this scumbag out of here and make sure he loses his medical license before he gets to the station." Carter left with his head down, crying, without saying a word. Richard and Anna were left alone amidst the medical team. Richard extended his hand to her again. Anna approached timidly. She was dirty. The uniform was rags. She smelled of grease and sweat. Richard took her hand. He didn't care about the dirt. He brought her calloused and bruised hand to his lips and kissed it tenderly on the palm. "You saved my life," he said, his voice choked, his eyes misty. "Twice. You faced the police, broke into my home, came into this hospital. Anna, why? I'm just the boss. I never gave you anything but a salary." Anna felt the warm tears wash away the grease from her face. She squeezed his hand. "You were never just the boss, Mr. Richard. You were the only one who asked if I was okay. The only one who looked at me like a person. And love is something we don't explain, we just feel." Richard smiled, and for the first time in years, the smile reached his eyes completely. "Then I promise I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve this love." The morning sun bathed the garden of the Ferrars mansion, which was unrecognizable. The dark, geometric, oppressive hedges that Laura loved had been uprooted. The cold marble statues were donated. Now the garden was alive. Beds of gardenias, jasmines, sunflowers, and white roses exploded in colors and fragrances, perfumes attracting butterflies and birds. The house seemed to breathe again. Anna was kneeling in the soft earth, planting a rare orchid. She wasn't wearing a uniform. She wore a light cotton yellow dress, her hair flowing in the gentle breeze. She seemed part of the garden. "Anna!" Richard's voice came from the porch. She turned, smiling, shielding her eyes from the sun with her dirt-covered hand. Richard descended the stone steps. He still used an elegant wooden cane, a temporary consequence of leg paralysis, but walked with vigor. Colour had returned. To his face, he had gained weight and looked 10 years younger. He walked towards her, admiring the scene. "What did I say about you playing in the heavy dirt?" He pretended to be angry, but his eyes sparkled. "Oh, Richard!" she laughed, getting up and wiping her hands on her gardening apron. "The habit is hard to break, and the new maid doesn't know how to talk to the plants. They need care to grow." Richard held her hands, dirty with black soil. He loved those hands. "Anna, I need to give you some serious news. I had a meeting with my lawyers this morning." Anna's smile faltered slightly. Her heart skipped a beat of insecurity. The scars of the past still hurt. Had the social difference finally weighed in? Had his wealthy friends said something? "What is it?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's about your position in the house. I'm sorry, but you're fired." Anna's world stopped. The air vanished. "Fired," she repeated, stunned. "But I did something wrong. The plants, the dinner." Richard released her hands and knelt on the grass. He grimaced in pain from his knee, but didn't care. He was at her level, looking deep into those brown eyes that saved him. "You're fired from the position of maid, housekeeper, gardener, and savior of the nation." He pulled a blue velvet box from his suit pocket. "Because I can't be married to my employee. It would be against the house rules, and I intend to break all the rules with you." Anna covered her mouth with her dirt-covered hands, her eyes filling with tears. Richard opened the box. A simple, delicate ring with a solitaire diamond that sparkled more than the sun rested inside. Nothing exaggerated or vulgar like the jewelry Laura demanded. It was pure, clear, and eternal like Anna. "Anna Claire Smith, will you accept to be the mistress of this house, the mistress of my heart, the mother of my future children, and the only woman I want to see every day when I wake up and before I sleep?" Anna looked at him, at the man who had died and was now kneeling at her feet. "I accept," she whispered, her voice faltering with emotion. "I accept, Richard, 1,000 times I accept." He took the ring from the box and slid it onto her dirt-covered finger. It was the most perfect contrast in the world. The diamond and the fertile earth, wealth and simplicity united. Richard stood up and pulled her in for a kiss. A slow, deep, passionate kiss sealed under the sunlight, far from the shadows of the past. On the porch of the house, Mr. Johnson, readmitted as fleet manager and wearing a new, impeccable uniform, and Mrs. Smith, now head housekeeper, watched the scene embraced, wiping their tears with handkerchiefs. "I knew it," Mr. Johnson sniffed. "Since the day she barged into my house at 4 a.m., I knew it would end in marriage. Justice had been served in the courts. Laura and Carter would pay for their crimes for decades, but there, in that garden, something greater had happened. Love had conquered death, and Anna, the maid who became queen, had finally found her castle. Did you like this story? Do you think Laura and Carter got what they deserved, or was it too little? Let me know in the comments.